Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from, or if you're tuning in later, welcome to Goaldigger here on LinkedIn Live. I'm Kate Luzio. I'm the founder and CEO of Luminary. And I realized that I have been hosting this almost every week for almost 2 years because we're coming up on this kind of crazy anniversary of when the pandemic hit New York in a few weeks. So that has been a little bit odd for me, but as Alana and I were just talking, I've been doing this on this platform for so long. I feel it's very much old hat. I am so excited. This is our first Goaldigger as we head off into Women's History Month to have not only a friend, an incredible peer mentor, a Luminary member, and just a trailblazer, just thinking about girls and women everywhere, Alana Rea, founder and CEO of Etra, also an incredible author of coming out soon on March 15th, but you can pre-order it now, the Epic Mentor Guide, as well as her first book, we're going to hear so much about. So welcome, Alana.
Thank you so much for having me. How much fun is this?
I know. I usually get to see you at Luminary, but
Right.
This is fun too. This is the benefit and the convenience of the digital world. But all right, so you are doing so many things, but before you started this journey on transforming really the lives of girls and young women as they think about what their careers could look like and their paths, you were a badass lawyer for years and years. So can you tell us a little bit about your story and how that led you to starting Etra?
Absolutely. And it is such a dotted line that goes from one to the other, and you would never think it. I was a lawyer. I went straight from law school to Skadden Arps, this big global firm in New York. I did mergers and acquisitions, and I loved it. I mean, I was the happiest, nerdiest lawyer ever. I loved it. And my first mentor was a woman, Nancy Lieberman, who was just a rock star in every way. And I look back on it now and I think about how much she impacted my career, my ambitions, the way I thought of myself, the way I interacted with clients. She was so, it was formative for what I was doing. And every mentor I had after that, whether it was a man or a woman, was sort of held to her bar. And I loved being a lawyer. I was there for 6 years. Then I stopped and stayed out for 6 while my kids were small. And then I went back for another 10, all in the same firm. So I loved the firm, and it had a really great mentorship culture. And while I was there, and my daughter, who was then in grade school and then middle school, she would look at me and think, I don't know what you do every day. I don't know what your friends do every day. And no, in all honesty, a lot of my friends, there's so many of them are Luminary members, these amazingly accomplished women. And, at the time she would say, oh, that's your friend from law school. That's your friend from book club, not recognizing that they were running corners of the world in their own way. And I started to think while I was working how important mentors were for me and why I wasn't introducing them to her sooner. And that was really the first time I started thinking about mentorship for girls later. It wasn't until after I retired in 2014 that I actually started to do this and launched Etra. But my time at Skadden and working in other places during law school, summer associates, I was so grateful for the mentors I had.
Is that so? And nothing against the law profession. Is that I have not heard that necessarily as a common theme or a common experience. And so when you talk about that, one starting out and then taking some time off to raise your kids and going back and having this incredible career in that industry, is that common? Or do you think that was the culture that was built at Skadden?
I can only speak to Skadden. I was a summer associate at other firms during law school, but I can really only speak to Skadden for a career. But I think they place a premium on mentorship. It's a very collegial place. And they really cared about your training. Also, I'm going to date myself, but when I started working, this was before cell phones and texting and, email wasn't running the world. Right. So when you had a mentor, I was in her office all the time. I went to every meeting with her. I learned at her cuff every step of the way. And mentorship has changed now, but at the time I was just absorbing by osmosis, and the firm liked it that way. They wanted you to rotate through a series of mentors. I think it made us better lawyers. I think it served our clients better. I just think that we became, you got a 360-degree view of what it was like to practice law because you were next to someone who was, so fantastic.
You would think, right, that, and I talk a lot about this with a lot of our corporate clients and partners at Luminary. You would think that this would be such common practice, right? Especially for women who we know are much more underserved in the mentorship and sponsorship, population at a lot of big companies. And I would say finance, tech, it's a common complaint for women is like, I don't have a great deal of mentors or apprentices that I can learn from. And I love the word you use, Alana, around absorb. You weren't there to say, okay, here's who I am. You were there to learn, listen, learn, and absorb.
Yeah.
Which is what mentorship really is.
And the companies that have it, 71% of Fortune 500 companies have an official mentorship platform. To me, that's not enough, right? It should be 100%. Right. But those that have it, I think really recognize the benefit. 90% of people who are mentored are likely to go on and mentor somebody else. It is a culture that's self-sustaining. And especially when companies invest that much time and money and effort in training their people, you want that to be passed on. You want that institutional knowledge to stay within your firm and grow and develop. Never mind the fact that it's good for the mentee. You're 5 times more likely. Forbes says that you're 5 times more likely to be promoted if you have a mentor.
And think about, we know this, but the loyalty that's created within that, right? You want to stay. I remember I was saying to someone who recently came to me, she was leaving her organization for something, and she was really feeling guilty. She's like, now I built this career at this one organization, and now it's really hard for me to leave. And I said, that's a good thing.
Right.
You're not just leaving because it's you. That organization has provided you some great opportunities and some incredible mentoring. And now you're taking the next step. It's actually, in my mind, in every organization, well, I will say 2 of the 3 banks that I left, I felt that way. I felt super guilty because I had the opportunity to be mentored and sponsored. So I love this. All right. So you 2014, you're like, I'm retiring. I love that word, retiring. And then what?
And then I really thought about, I knew I wanted to do something in the mentorship space. And what I imagined and what actually happened were really different. I wanted to have, it was small. I thought I would have a girls' summit, a one-day event where I was going to invite 25 of my friends in really interesting industries and all the girls we could find. And one day, on my back porch, girls, ask your questions, right? You know me, I'd say it all the time. Raise your hand instead of lowering your standards. Ask your questions. You have to have questions about what people do. And here are 25 women with great jobs. And we couldn't make it happen just because of schedules. But one of the women looked at me, with all the honesty that girlfriends do, and said, you're a bit of an idiot. This is bigger than a one-day thing. You should be building something with infrastructure. You should be building something where girls can drop in and find free links to the things they love, role model quotes, things like that. And that once I had that idea, I built the Etra website, which is not the website you see now. It's so much prettier now. It was very drag and drop. But I built that fairly quickly, and I launched it on Mother's Day of 2016 because I thought a lot of people would be on Facebook and it would be a good time to get the word out. And at the time, it was just a resource site. The minute I got girls involved, the minute I built a board of middle and high school age girls, it grew, and all of our best ideas came from them. We started after school clubs in 2017, and then we started going into companies, and that became the heart of what we do. We started going into companies, 10, 15, 20 girls at a time, companies that the girls picked to meet women. And that's really what we do. We take Etra means to be in French, and we take them directly into companies so they can figure out who they want to be.
So we met in 2018 by, I guess now a mutual friend, Mr. David Burke. So David, you're really not listening, but we're going to give you the shout out.
And he just had a birthday. Happy birthday, David.
And he just opened a new restaurant in New York, Mr. French, which is amazing. I've been multiple times. And he introduced us because I was literally just starting to figure out Luminary. Mm-hmm. He was opening a restaurant right around the corner. We got connected, and and he put us on email. We met at that little coffee shop right on over near Hudson Yards, Hell's Kitchen, and we were, I think, kindred spirits from the beginning, because one, as what Luminary is doing to advance women in the workforce, but by also involving our male allies. Two, my board work on Girls Inc. And thinking through, taking the girl all the way to the woman and that concept. You launch Etra, then you write your first book.
Then I wrote my first book. So when I first launched Etra, I sent a cold email out every day to a woman I didn't know, saying, this is what I'm doing. I'd love your feedback, good or bad. Ariana Huffington writes back 6 weeks into it and says, I love what you're doing. I want you to write for Huffington Post. I want a video of you with your girls. So I started writing for Huffington and then for Thrive when everything moved over to Thrive. So the first book was a compilation of articles that I had written for Huffington, for Thrive, for Ms. Magazine, and quotes from 40 women, you included, which I loved, and 50 girls. And it was aimed at the middle school crowd, middle school and going into high school. The idea being, stay close to the things you love, because there are tons and tons of role models out there. And just because you don't know them doesn't mean that they're not cheering you on and want to be a springboard for you to just excel in that area. And we launched that first book at Luminary, which I love because so much of it was written at Luminary.
And what I can literally see that event in my head, including Woodpecker Pizza. But the girls.
Yeah.
This is what people don't the power of our voices as women, our voices as girls, and most importantly, the power to change the conversation, to change policy, but more importantly, I think to change behavior. Mm-hmm. When I looked and listened, and for everyone that's listening, when we did this event, we basically had
we had about 20 of the girls,
20 of the girls,
books.
And they got to sign books.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing that, and the pride that they had for being part of this. I mean, you had the website, you had all of these great companies getting involved. You're writing your first book. You launched the book. Pandemic.
Yeah. So we can no longer go into companies, and we had a lot lined up, and all of a sudden everything stops. And while it was, we can talk about how it affected women and all of that. For the girls, it changed everything, particularly the girls in high school, because they're looking at college applications, they're looking at all of this stuff, and suddenly there is no spring musical, and there is no fall sports season, and there is no yearbook, and all of those things that were differentiating them went up in smoke. And what are we going to do? So we did two things. We pivoted the company visits to virtual, and that was immediate. We just started doing mentor pop-ups on Zoom. And what that allowed us to do actually was get girls in different countries, which another thing I didn't imagine. Suddenly, instead of taking 20 girls to the floor of the stock exchange, who were all from in and around the 5 boroughs, we had girls in India and girls in Israel and girls in Turkey joining these Zooms to talk to someone at Billboard or Disney, which was amazing.
Or NASA.
Or NASA, right. But they were all asking the same questions. And that really struck me, that the girls might be located in different corners of the earth. They all want to know, do I really need a cover letter? And how do I do a virtual interview? And how do I ask about diversity and inclusion in an interview? Am I allowed to ask that? All of these girls are asking the same questions. So that gave me the idea for the book, which was we should start collecting these questions and getting women at these companies to answer them. And then at the same time during COVID, we got licensed as a TED Ed club. And that was a great thing for the girls too. I had 16 girls do TED Talks last year. We got renewed this year, so I'm going to have girls doing TED Talks again.
Amazing.
And it gave them a way, again, to dive into that which they couldn't participate in school or in their community anymore. They still had something to say, and they were able to say it. So those were two things that came out of COVID in the midst of, everything else shutting down. And then the other thing, and I think you and I talked about it once, was the weird silver lining that as women suddenly were working from home and spinning plates and doing all the balancing they were doing, women met the moment, but girls met mentors in a new way because they saw it in their house. They could actually see their mom, their aunt, the neighbor with the cool job running her work world, and they saw it up close and personal. And I don't think that had happened in the same way before.
No, I think there was we had, as you know, the Luminaries first
Yeah.
Women's History Summit yesterday, and I think Mindy
Amazing.
Bergman, right, said it best. In the old days, people saw work Mindy, there
Yeah.
was home Mindy, there was like, fun, go out Mindy.
Right.
When the pandemic happened, this is Mindy.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think particularly for girls, there was an eye-opening experience around everything that what women were doing, right? Running. I love the term that you just used, spinning plates. Everything that was happening. And by the way, that's not over.
Right.
So
no.
I think it really, I hate the word balance, right? So I'm just not a fan. I don't think I certainly don't have balance. I read an article yesterday, life management.
Oh, that's good.
What it is.
Oh, I do like that.
Management now. So the idea of, we focus so much on women, and once they're in their career and mentor, which by the way, that's what we do at Luminary.
Right.
Girls, when they think of the term mentor, right? What resonates with them? Because I can think back, I was with you. I didn't have cell phone. We didn't have email.
Right.
I don't think I heard the word mentor till many years into my career.
It was a very work specific thing. You talk about mentorship, sponsorship, allies. Those were very grown up professional words.
Right.
I don't mind using it in the context of a middle schooler or a high schooler or, in college. I think the idea that there's something more than a role model. A role model might be someone that you follow on social, you watch, there's no connection at all. There's no interaction or asking questions. It may be aspirational and it may be a fantastic person to hold out as a role model. But a mentor is different. Someone who invests her time and her energy to inspire you, to challenge your assumptions, to empower you in any way. That, for a middle schooler, that could be a teacher, that could be a coach, that could be a neighbor, and anything, right? And absolutely. And that person is engaging in a mentor relationship because something of value is being offered and accepted and time's being spent. So when we go into a company, if we walk into Goldman Sachs, maybe we're only spending 2 hours there. But the women we meet are handing out their emails and they're saying, reach out to me with questions. And girls 2 years later are circling back to those women saying, I don't know if you remember me, but I sat in your boardroom. I was the one spinning around in the chair. And now I'm looking at internships and would you look at my resume? Would you check my LinkedIn profile? And every woman is saying yes, because they remember what it's like. I think those are mentors at an early age. And if we can make access early and
oh, did we lose you? Alana?
I'm here.
Oh, sorry, I lost you. Maybe you froze for a second. Can you rephrase, say that again? If we can, you said if we
can democratize access to mentors, if we can give girls early and diverse access to rock star mentors and inspire them and bolster their confidence, why would we not? And every woman would say yes. So I think there's a place for early access to mentors.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I love seeing this, especially this next generation coming up. They're very optimistic.
Yeah.
We're changing the world, and I give them kudos for that. My worry is if we don't start mentoring them now, once they hit the real world of the professional workforce, it's a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Right. I'll give you a great example. I mentor obviously a lot of women, including at high school and college age through through Maryland where I went. Mm-hmm. And one of the young women, she's a freshman. She joined one of our LinkedIn lives, one of them, I don't know which one, around micromanagement. And she's like, I didn't know that term.
Right.
I have no idea what it's going to be like to hit the corporate world and what I need to be aware of. And thank you for being transparent. So even sharing those little bits of information around what life is like in the workforce, if you are ever thinking about becoming a parent, or if you're a caregiver, what that could potentially look like. I think the mentoring can start so early. And even if you don't think you're making a difference, like you said, that girl spinning around in the chair, and now she's like, hey, I need help.
Right.
That is where we can have a true sea change, I think, for women as they are the next generation of leaders. you have in this next book, which by the way is out March 15th, but you can pre-order it now. You have some unbelievable women. So your experience the first time, you're kind of cold reaching out. This time it was a flood of women that wanted to participate.
It was. I was stunned, actually. The original goal was the same thing. If I can get 50 women, how exciting will that be? I started collecting questions from girls during COVID, whether they were through these mentor pop-ups or just a form on our website for our community. What would you ask if you could ask anyone anything? Or if there's an industry you're interested in, what would you ask? And think big. And we got questions about what's it like to interview at the International Space Station? What's it like to work at NASA? How do I get an internship at SpaceX? How do I get my art scene at Pixar? How do I network on TikTok? Really specific questions. And then I just went out to those companies to ask women to answer the questions. So it was, you're going to laugh, but it was 5 emails a day for about a year, asking. And what was amazing was the women, everybody said yes. Everyone said, oh, I wish I'd had this. But if they didn't have the answer, they were really generous to say, I'm not the person you should ask, but I know who is. You should talk. We got a question about getting your first sketch on Saturday Night Live. So I reached out to the executive producer. She said, I'm not the person. Let me give you to a writer. And Sudie Green answers. We have Bobby Brown, Tyra Banks, the Skim founders, Haben Girma, who graduated Harvard Law, deaf and blind. The women who came out of the woodwork to participate in this knocked my socks off. They really did.
No, I remember getting that email and saying, hey, Kate, do you know any of these women? Can you introduce, and thinking this is going to be, I think as women, in particular, the women that are in the book, we've all been there. Right. And if we had, and I think, I think back, and I don't know, a lot of this is your experience. Like my mom is incredible. She is my ultimate champion, my best friend, but she wasn't in business. Right. And so she was an incredible teacher for her whole entire career, working mom, spinning plates.
Yep.
And so she could advise me on certain things, right? But then who else? And if I had, and I had great aunts, so to all my aunts in business out there, but I think you're onto something so incredible for younger girls. And at that middle school age, it's such a pivotal point. And as we enter high school, that, and now because of social media, everything is instantaneous. So as I look at what you're building, not only with the books, but with Etra, this level of access because of the digital and virtual space, you can amplify and reach so many more girls.
Yep. And the women want that. Every single woman in the book gave her preferred social media handle. So under their names, you'll see whether it's TikTok or Insta or Twitter, saying, follow me, stay engaged with me, DM me a question. This isn't just a one-time quote that I'm throwing into a book. I'm answering a question that you posed to me. And if you have more, here's how you reach me. And I love that because it really did make it feel like more than just a mentor moment. These are women who want to be followed and asked questions, and they're engaging with the girls. And I love that so much. And it's a big part, I think, of what you've baked into Luminary from the start, is that willingness to have mentors, have peer mentors, and even reverse mentoring. I can't tell you how many people I've met at Luminary where I'm like, okay, I really need to learn tech-wise how to do something. and you have the pipeline to do it. I think those cultures, that's where women were coming out of the woodwork to do it, because they're already doing it in environments like yours. And I love that.
No, it's really, and I love that, the reverse mentoring and the peer mentorship, right? We always think of in mentorship, it's got to be someone more senior, right? Think about how much you're learning from these girls too.
Every day.
Right? And I remember that just from that one event, and then obviously reading and what the questions they're thinking about. There was a woman yesterday at the summit, and she came in, she was from finance. And at the end of the night, she was leaving, and she said, my network is bankers, right? It's people in the finance world. While I met bankers here, and I met so many other women from different industries that I would never meet. And I think that is the opportunity with these middle schoolers and high schools, is show them a big world and that they can do anything that they want.
And women our age need that too now, because look how many women coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, are pivoting. are
Yeah.
re-entering the workforce, are
Yes.
saying, I'm no longer going to do that which I was doing before. I'm going in a whole new direction. You look in the book at someone like Dawn Porter, who left the practice of law to make movies with Oprah, or one of the astronauts who started in med school and then went to NASA, women who pivoted, and they can serve as mentors for women our age who are changing direction right now.
No, I mean, you're seeing it every day with the great resignation, the great renewal, the great, whatever we want to call it. And I think I'm calling it, so you've heard it first, the great divide, right? So as people start to re-engage in offices and you have this proximity bias, and it's going to be more impactful, I think, for women and people of color that are at home more or working remotely more, they are not going to have the same opportunities. We have to be very cognizant of that. And so for those women that decide I'm going to move on, this is so important, right? So your book is not just for the young girls. It's really for all, right?
I didn't intend that. I wrote it for the girls, but I can't tell you how many friends are like, you know what, I'd love to take a peek and see what they're talking about in these industries.
Exactly. And as we're seeing people have second, third, fourth careers, this is so important. And also, when you think about this mentoring, one of the things that is such a great, I think, output of that is relationship building and networking.
Yes.
Right. Which people seem, and we hear it every day at Luminary, I don't want to network. I don't like, how do I network? How do I virtually network? This is actually, that mentoring piece is like a nice unintended consequence of, wow, relationship building and networking really come out of that too.
Yeah. Everyone has something to learn from someone else, and everyone has something to teach someone else. And a lot of it is just the bravery to make the ask.
Exactly.
How do you have the courage to make the ask? And you make the ask respectfully, and you make it a light ask. And, you're not immediately saying, be my lifelong mentor, coffee every Thursday. That's not what you're doing. But I think everyone benefits. And when girls, especially in high school and they're getting into college, they know how to network in certain ways. But when they learn how to network professionally, offering something of value, I saw this article you wrote and I thought this other one would be great. I saw your TED Talk and I shared it with, 800 people. There's networking to be done, and they can learn how to do that. And it's a little bit natural to them.
Exactly. Well, this always goes by so fast. Alana, where can people find this incredible book and more about Etra?
So you can follow us at Etra Girls everywhere on social media. Links to the book are there. Our website is etragirls.com, E-T-R-E. You have it right there, girls.com. Under books, you'll see the first book and this book. It comes out March 15th. You can still pre-order it now. And I'm so excited. If we're talking about the great divide and the great resignation, I think what everybody needs is a really great mentor. So
yeah, and a little plug here for we have an incredible event upcoming on March 23rd, the Power Women Book Tour. We have Alana, we have Daisy, I always mess up her last name, Dominguez Audier from Vice. We have Fran Hauser, we have Minda Hartz, and we have Tiffany Dufu. So you can also check out listening to some of these incredible women and their books.
Yes, come meet us. Come get books signed. It's on March 23rd at Luminary, of course. Come meet a mentor.
Come meet a mentor. Alana, I will see you soon. Thank you again. And I'm so excited to read the book.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
See you soon.
Okay.
All right, everyone, don't go anywhere. We are bringing on our next guest. And I'm going to bring her up right now. Lorna, hello.
Hi, so nice to see you.
So we just got off of the first session with Alana Raya, who runs Etra Girls, and talking about young girls, middle schoolers, high schoolers, teaching them about mentorship, how to ask for more. You are now you run women and customer engagement at Fidelity Investments, and you're actually giving women a voice in a very different way. So welcome, Lorna. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background, your story, and then we're going to get into all things women at Fidelity.
Sure. God, my background and my story. It's probably pretty simple, but the quick thing is, I've been working in some form of financial services for a number of years. And what I think is really interesting, the first set of years were, we call it financial services, but it was much more, it was American Express. So the credit card industry, and had a great career there, growing family. Because I think as we talk about me, it was important at the same time as I had a great career, I had a growing family. I have 3 children now. And, just careers and moving around, have now ended up at Fidelity in much more of the heart of the financial services industry. I still have those 3 children. I still have a husband, and it's really interesting because now I lead our women investor and customer engagement efforts. And I always think this story is very relevant, and why I bring up my family is I am someone who historically thought of myself as someone who was very engaged in my money and my career. But the reality is I wasn't. And until I came to Fidelity and realized that there was an opportunity for me to be doing more, I was working so hard for my money and my family, but I was not making that work for me. We were taking a more traditional divide and conquer approach to our money. And when I came to Fidelity, there were women's efforts. I joined a few of those conversations. And since then, I have changed that. And it became, I was always very passionate about being a mentor, particularly to women, but in general, helping people along their journey. And this became a personal and professional passion of mine. Women are making such great strides, education, economically, and we now just have an opportunity to make sure that our money and what we earn is following along with that and doing. And so that's a little bit about me and what I do.
So we're going to go back a little bit. We were just talking about I read an article yesterday. I don't like the word balance, so I'm using the term life management now. You're building your career. You're raising 3 children, and trying to manage your life at the same time. As you think about those years that led you, and you've been at Fidelity, what, 6 years now, 6 or 7 years?
That's what yes.
What were the pivotal points in your career that you particularly started to think about money?
Well, definitely through life events. And life events to me start with, and I'll be fully transparent. In the beginning, I was in New York City, where I went out of college. I actually went to business school in New York City. And that was a lot of, how is my money helping fund my lifestyle?
Yeah, of course.
And that was really, to me, it was more of a day-to-day thing early on. I think the moments where money started to become important was really heading into marriage and paying for a wedding. I was lucky enough that my parents had helped me out with college and business school, which I know very lucky. And so it really, money became more of an issue when I was on my own, and funding that lifestyle. And then those moments of like marriage, and then, kids, just through like a whole nother of like, oh my goodness, how are we going to afford this and live in New York City?
Right.
And then if we're working, affording help and all of those pieces. So at that time, each of those life events, I think, created more stress for me when it came to money. But I would say to you, when I think about my most pivotal moment, and I just mentioned this, it was actually, I was highly money stressed up until, I would say, 7 years ago, right or wrongly so.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking at the big picture. I wasn't making those decisions about like our goals and what we wanted to do, and making sure we were on the same page with what we wanted to do. And the biggest moment honestly came when I actually stepped into being more involved, making sure like our money was helping to achieve what we wanted it to. And there were things we disagreed with. And my biggest moment was when I started to get that more involved. And I will tell you something, it was the best thing I ever did for my stress levels, because it went from here where I was I was a big purchase that my husband made on this 80-inch TV, where I was like, we don't need that. That now it's a completely different conversation where I've got the bigger things in order. And that has been a game changer.
I love that you bring that up, because I don't know if it's, and I said this to my mom the other day, I'm a traditional Gen Xer. So I think there was coming from my baby boomer parents, there was and they pay, and like you, privilege, they paid for my college, right? So there was a level of money talk in the house around paying bills and saving and saving and saving and hoarding the cash so that they could pay for college. And I think I got a lot of that. That's not a bad thing, because it also, helped me learn the value of a dollar and working hard. But I do think that generationally, there is that stress about money comes from so much from, how we grew up. You are, and a little bit of background on, so that our viewers know, I know she's no longer at Fidelity, but Amy Philbrook, who is a massive advocate for women and was at Fidelity for quite a long time, introduced us. And then we have mutual friends like Eliza Freud from She Speaks, etc. What I loved about when we first met, and now multiple conversations, is you are truly trying to change the conversation for women, not just women that are customers at Fidelity, but women. And even just having this segment at an organization like Fidelity, I think is trailblazing.
I think it is, but I wish it wasn't, I guess is what I would say.
Right.
For me, I think you nailed it with just, I think, upbringing and cash is king and saving. And I think the biggest thing that I felt is important, it shouldn't be trailblazing. This is an industry that historically built, many have said it, by men for men. This is just going back 70 years ago. And what we really need to do is get to a place where it becomes common for women to be talking about money, Fidelity customer or not, all of us, and what we can be doing with our money. And I say this word, make it work harder for us, but I feel like, and I personally missed out on so much potential growth of my money, not just saving it. I was saving it in a bank account. I was so proud and saving, but that savings could have been doing so much more, and watching it grow with just better understanding what the options are available to make it work harder. And so we are trailblazing, but in a way, I always think about retirement. When I think about retirement, I retire when this becomes commonplace.
Right.
And that women are predominant in this industry, and we're doing things differently. And what I'm most excited about, we just came out with a study celebrating Women's History Month, which we'll talk a little bit about that because I'm so excited you're going to join us, but that really talk about the younger generation. And that's women we look at under 36 who are really taking a step forward and doing it differently. They are realizing that like investing and planning is a way to achieve like their lifestyle, but do good for the greater good. And it is so exciting to see this change in front of us, because the conversation needs to change for all of us and for women to kind of take that center stage like we want them to.
I totally agree. I was in a meeting earlier this morning with some great women, and we were talking about like, why aren't we talking about money more? We talk about everything else with our friends, our networks. We talk about everything. We talk about bad bosses. We talk about bad boyfriends or husband, whatever. We talk about everything, but we don't talk about money, right? And I learned in my very long career in banking before starting Luminary to talk about money because the guys were talking about money. The guys were talking about what they were making, what their bonuses were, what they should be making, right? Which instilled in me, like, wait, if they're talking about it, I need to be talking about it. Why? I guess I want to talk about Women Talk Money, but this question will lead there. Why was this so important for Fidelity to think about this as more than a segment?
So first, I feel very lucky to be at Fidelity. And because Abby Johnson is kind of our leader, and it's not just Abby Johnson because, she's kind of overall sets our direction, but the reality of having it being women-led is important. But there are so many women leaders at all levels across the company. And it's more than one, they all see the importance of serving people like them. The second thing is there's goodness happening, which is there is a major wealth transfer that is underway and there's three reasons. There's women on average live longer than men. So through, death, there is more divorce, as we know. And then the fact that women are remaining economically independent, women are set to control 2/3 of the assets in the country in the next 10 years. And so it's an imperative that we really rethink about how we help women, everybody, with their money so that they're able to achieve their dreams. I mean, that is what we want to do and their goals. And so, it's great to be at a company that is so many women and is so committed to women and diversity in a way that I think just differentiates itself in the industry. And I'm really proud of it.
No, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of, I think there's a lot of noise right now around how to capture this segment, right? Because for all the reasons that you just mentioned, we're also, 50% of the workforce, a little less because of the she session and what's happened. But this is the next generation. When you also look at the women that are graduating from college, women graduating with graduate degrees, there are more women doing that than men, right? We have to prepare them. When we first started talking about Women's History Month, and let's just set the stage here. Yes, Women's History Month is 1 month, but organizations like Fidelity and Luminary are doing this every day, right? This work happens every day. That's why there is a head of the women and customer engagement at Fidelity. Women Talk Money is what's happening this month. Can you talk about the Women Talk Money? It's such an incredible lineup of speakers, but what's it about? Why does it exist? What's your hope with this whole initiative?
So first, I love what you just said. And it's funny. I was having a number of conversations myself, which is this is what we focus on every day. This month gives us a moment to step into it further and to do more, but it's got to be a year-round conversation. Women Talk Money actually is a year-round conversation. I just want to we started Women Talk Money at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was because thousands of women, everybody, but were reaching out for help and had a lot of questions. And we wanted to figure out how can we get out there in a bigger way. And, if you harken back 2 years ago, we all didn't know if we were going to have our jobs. Do we have enough money to get through the pandemic and in case we lost our job? And it became a live discussion where we thought we were going to do it for a few weeks I jumped on moderating. You're an amazing moderator, so we should have you do it with a couple of our financial professionals. And thousands of women started joining us from across the country to talk about money and life. And it became a platform that we have on a regular basis. We meet monthly. There's newsletter, there's checklists and help. And the reason why it works, it's women coming together. We're not judging one another. It's a safe space where we're just having real conversations about what to do. And now Women's History Month, which I'm so excited for, is an opportunity for us to dial up that support and conversation. And the month is really about coming together on all of the money topics that have come to us from everyone that we speak to. That's important. And I say money, but I'm most excited so we have a number of what we kind of call like the marquee events where we'll talk about how to achieve financial wellness and the steps to take, how to invest more. We've seen a takeoff of investing over the past couple years.
Yes.
But a lot of people are still wanting to know, how do I get into it? What do I do? There's risk aversion, how do I manage for that we're going to talk about. And then one of my most exciting segments that are going to come up that we are going to come together on is talking about career. And to talk about what you just said, how should we be thinking about our career? Mentorship. How do we make sure that we are getting paid the value that we're delivering? And so I think it's just going to be an exciting month to just help and come together with what I'm hoping is hundreds of thousands of women. By the way, we do have a lot of men who join us as well. And it's not just Fidelity customers, as you know, it's for everybody and it's free. And that's what I love about it, is that this is do good overall, is our hope.
Yeah. And because, I think a lot of people feel if it's led by a big company, it's not accessible. Number one, it's free, but number two, you don't have to be a customer. You don't have to be a seasoned investor. You don't have to have a bunch of money in your bank account in order to take advantage. I also love, and I'm just going to give a little bit of props because I know a couple of these great women. You've got Money Moves to supercharge financial wellness, which is Erin Lowry of Broke Millennial and my buddy Farnoosh Tarabi of CNET and So Money. You have Money Moves and Healthy Habits to raise your investing game with Tori Dunlap of Her First 100K. And then you've got Money Moves to maximize your biggest asset, your career, which I'm really fortunate to join along with a friend, Claire Wasserman of Ladies Get Paid. Why are those the three topics? Like, did you guys do research and this is what came out? Or is this just years and years of doing this? Like you said, this isn't a flash in the pan. You started this Women Talk Money at the beginning of the pandemic.
It was completely sourced by the top questions that we were getting and the topics. At this point, I think, we still do research, but our research is the conversations that we have on a regular basis with all of the hundreds of thousands of women that are joining us. And they're saying, these are where I'm getting stuck. This is where I want to get help, or this is where I want to just have real conversation. And I am thankful for the lineup of voices that you just said. And the reason why we thought it was so important to have someone like you and Erin and Claire, et cetera, was because the way that this is going to be most successful and helpful for everybody is to bring together a collective set of voices, not just Fidelity. Of course, we're going to be in the conversation so that we hear real stories, what you found to work and how you approach things differently. And that to me is what makes it just more relatable for all, but also really figuring out how to get kind of real help and connect in a way that I think we need you all to do this well, because it's a collective of all of us together.
No, it truly is, right? And 1 + 1 = 3. I think that we as we pave the way for the next generation of women investors, of women founders, of women leaders and CEOs, and that whole pipeline, giving them access to that education, those tips, those actionable things that they can do to take control, whether that's of their, financial confidence, because so much of that is around, like you said earlier, stressing about money. There was a lack of confidence in understanding, what was happening. I mean, that was for me too. I remember when I wrote the business plan for Luminary, and then we did financial projections, and it was like, okay, I can self-fund this. But the amount of stress then, because I didn't feel 100% necessarily in control. Now that's part and parcel of starting a business and taking that big risk of self-funding it. When you think about the younger, right? So this is the middle schoolers, the high schoolers, the college age girls in particular. How do we get access to those girls, especially in high school and college, as they're starting that financial journey? Some of them being lucky enough to have their parents paying or funding their college educations, but a lot of student loan debt.
So it is a lot of student loan debt, and I think the biggest opportunity for us is what you said is starting out with younger women. I'm going to say younger everybody. One of the things that we are doing at Fidelity is actually we do have, as part of our relationships, we serve people directly through our retail offering, but we actually work across the country, as you know, with thousands of employers. Sangeeta Morjani, who is joining us for one of our kickoff event, actually kind of leads our business that serves employers and what we call participants people. They're called 403Bs, and we work with universities and colleges and healthcare as well. And one of the things that we are really kicking off doing is helping to get out there and provide education earlier on, so that there's more. I mean, I went to college and I went to high school, I went to college, no one taught me how to do things that I love today. I always talk about, and we'll talk about it next week, but basic guidelines of how to think about the money that is coming in, that I'm earning, and what should go to everyday expenses, what should go to retirement, what should go have an emergency savings.
Right.
I love my parents, never told me about emergency savings.
Yeah.
And then how to, if there's money left over, live my life and start to invest. Those are the basic things that we need to be getting out there. And those are things we're actually partnering to do more. And I have a little funny story this morning. So my son is 14 years old. He goes to high school. He's in 9th grade, and he is taking a course called The World of Money. And yeah, I know, which is great. And two things have come up that are so exciting that he has shared it with me. Number one, they listened to a podcast a couple months ago around getting started with your money early. And it featured Kelly Lannon, who leads our emerging investor efforts at Fidelity. I believe, well, and is like a great partner. And she had done a podcast to get out there and help. And so he had texted me while they were listening to it in class. Just today, he just texted me and he said, part of my homework assignment is to go through and use this Fidelity tool. It's called an investing challenge that we're supposed to kind of learn about all the different parts of investment. It actually happens to be, so he texted me the tool, happens to be something we in the women's team worked on. And I was like, oh, I love that. So what's I'm most excited about is we create this education and these tools, obviously for our customers, but for everybody. They are free. But the fact that we are working to get them out there. We use plain speak. It is about helping everybody to learn on a path that they're comfortable with, where they are. And it's so exciting that it's getting into the schools. So things are starting to change and we're trying to help it.
That's amazing. You talk about, my parents, I remember when I graduated college and I got my first job, and my dad said, just remember, we paid for your college. So start saving now for all the kids you're going to have, right? If you want to have kids. And I did. And so I did start saving. And I remember learning about a 403B and what that looked like, thanks to my dad. And I told this story, I think one was my first podcast after I left banking. I was on So Money with Farnoosh. And she's like, what's your first memory of money? And I remember I had the incredible grandparents on both sides that for birthdays, they would give us cash, and it was like a big production. You'd get the check. I mean, the cash. And it was like, my one grandfather was like $100 bill or Christmas. And we would literally, my brothers and I would have it in our hands for 4 seconds. We could see it, and then it was gone. My dad's like, that's going in your college fund. And we're like, but you saw it for 4 seconds. It's like the same thing. And how I looked at it as I got into the private sector was my 401k, right? If I don't even see it, right? I see it for 1 second and then it's saved, right? And then I can invest it. So I look at that like little example of thinking about how people can learn much earlier that there are ways to invest. You don't have to be a multimillionaire to invest your money. And it's getting that access and that education out there. I love that about your son. Someone put in the chat, I got to listen to this because I want my daughters to learn.
I will say it's funny. So first of all, I only got $25. You get $100. So lucky you. But what's funny is the one thing I always hear, so is, I'm so lucky to be able to talk to so many women across the country, and it's really interesting. But the one thing I always note is everyone says, my dad.
Yes.
My dad. And this is over and over and over again. And I talk about like the things I'm like, not just being trailblazed, part of the common conversation. I cannot wait. And I love the comment that came in the chat. I can't wait until I hear more from young women who say, my mother, my friends, because that is the type of change that I think we need to have to really make this a part of our, we don't talk about money, our regular dialogue, but really imparting kind of like that wisdom on the next generation.
That didn't even dawn on me. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you do it every day in and day out around money, but that didn't even dawn on me. I was just thinking, as you said that, again, no shade to my mom. That was just my dad's job, right? He controlled the finances, and that's a historical role. And I'm sure and I've read your research. I think that's still a predominant thing. But as the millennials and Gen Z, people are waiting later to get married. They're not necessarily sharing, joint accounts. I think that will change, but even just saying it out loud helps to change that dynamic and maybe reframe. So as women that you're listening out there, and you do have participate in the finances, let's start to change that conversation. You're also seeing more women being the breadwinners, right? And you're also seeing, as you said, some of the statistics, women are living longer, the big transfer of wealth. They need to make sure that they're in a position to be able to take that on if they're not doing that today.
That's exactly right. And one stat that we did just see, which I keep on talking about the younger generation, young women are now investing outside of retirement. So they're doing great with retirement. Now that's the prevalence also if you have access. Now that can change with the gig economy, but to workplace employer plans. But young women are actually investing 10 years earlier than older generations outside of retirement. It's in their early 20s. And that is just like, we're seeing that goodness begin. But a lot also say that they're just not sure what they're doing. They're getting started in the right way. So we've got to do more of that. But the fact that things are getting into the high schools and younger, it's going to kind of change the dynamic. But I want to recognize there are a lot of, I'm a Gen Xer too, and boomers, and everybody needs help. And I will tell you the hardest thing I found, and even for me, listen, Gen Xer came into Fidelity, came in to help, run parts of this business. And it was really hard to be able to admit, not hard, I did admit it. And I got a little judged, I think, that I was not doing all I could with my money. And my biggest thing is that, like, it doesn't matter when you begin. It's great to see the younger generation doing more. What I care as much about is wherever you are, to take those steps and feel like you're not going to be judged. It's more about getting you the help so that when you are later in life, or even for today, you could just live it better because it's doing something for you.
Yeah, you can live a better lifestyle. You can not stress all the time about money, and you can understand what that path could be and what you need to do. If this is, if your ultimate goal is X, how do you get there?
That's exactly right.
And I think a lot of people think, well, certainly again, Gen Xer, like, what's retirement? At the younger turn, it was like, when can I go on this incredible vacation? When can I quit my job and start my own company? When can I buy my first house? I mean, I think back when I bought my first house, I didn't have any financial confidence. I was more the mortgage broker was basically educating me on everything, right? So it's great to hear that you all are seeing that, the younger generation, and again, gender inclusive, but in the context of women, that we are starting to talk money more. So these always go by so fast. Where can people find out? I'm putting it up in the banner, but where can people find out more about Women Talk Money? I know the next event is March 8th with Farnoosh and Aaron, but can you tell the audience where they can find out more?
Yes. And in fact, what we have there is actually a longer one. So I'm going to give us a shorter one. So you can get both. So it's fidelity.com/women.
Oh,
and the reason why I use that one is it gives you option to two things. Number one, for everybody, it gives you a run of what you covered for what we're doing for Women's History Month with are those big events. We also have a full week of workshops, and we're going to cover everything from social impact investing. We're going to talk about planning for retirement, just starting out investing. So take advantage of those as well. So that's there. And then, as I said, we have our always on Women Talk Money, which is, oh, you changed that. Look at how quick you are. We always have our always on Women Talk Money, which is an opportunity to join the conversation, to get access to help and actionable tools and checklists right into your inbox, and that you can register for as well. And my biggest thing I always say for both, you can join, you can participate, you can join the chats, or you can simply just, if you want to get started and listen in, and it's just a great way to do it.
It's a great way to start, and it's also a great way to see what the conversation's about. You are not alone, right? No matter how alone you feel in this journey around money, there are thousands and millions that feel the same way, right?
Yes. And I can't wait for you to join us, because I think talking about career, talking about sharing what we make, making sure we're being paid for our value, and what, not just pay, but like what's important to you, that is going to be a great conversation to join. So we're so excited to have you with us.
I'm so excited. I'm excited to participate. Lorna, I've just so enjoyed getting to know you these last couple of years and learning more about what Fidelity's doing. So everyone, please check out fidelity.com/women. This is not a paid promotion. This is an organic, this is actually what we need to be doing every day. So Lorna, thanks for joining. And I know we'll talk soon, but I will see you soon as well. And everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, and start thinking about your money now.
So good to see you. And I can't wait to talk soon.
All right, everyone, have a great one. See you next week.